Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
How are you?
I'm doing. I apologize for being late. I was trying to
I
finish.
never start. I usually don't start till like 1:04, 1:05. So it gives people a chance to get here. So, well, it's the big day tomorrow. The synagogue is opening up after 13 months, 14 months. Hard to believe it's been that long, but that's where we are.
Seems forever.
It has been a long time. And it's kind of nice to see some things gradually returning to a sense of normalcy. I mean, they're not totally normal yet, but we're getting there. We're moving there. And, I think that's a good thing. And I think the part of moving there is, getting back with communities of people who haven't seen each other for quite some time. So it's a beautiful day. It's a little warm, but it's still nice out.
It will get warmer.
It will, I know. We're only on the very, very beginnings. May 1st is tomorrow, so I always consider by the end of May, we're thick into the humidity and the heat and whatever. So,
Do we know? Do you know? Because I don't. I know that there's the percentage of people, the numbers of people that can be safely in the sanctuary.
right.
And I know about that there's a percentage, but I don't know what the percentage is. And I remember that at one point in time, it was the actual amount was like 350 people that you could safely sit.
Oh, by
And
fire code. Yeah.
yeah,
By the fire marshal code. Right now, as of what they're starting with opening right now, 50 people in the seats, not counting the
really,
rabbi, not counting whoever is on the bima from the board and whatever, not counting Kelly, who will be, up with playing the music, the organ, singing. But they're only starting with 50 just to kind of see how it goes, spaced. Ushers will direct people to seats, so everything will stay spaced. I'm not sure how they're handling, leaving at the end of service, because you know what it's like. People go in the middle of the aisle and they're talking and schmoozing and whatever, and they think they kind of want that not to happen, but it's going to be hard for it not to happen. Because that's just what people do, is they haven't seen people and they want to say hello, they want to get caught up in all of that. So, it's trial and error, and that's why, we got to start. We won't know how it's going to work until we start it, and so we have to start, and then we'll work out the kinks, the problems as we go along. People coming up to the bima to read, from or do the aliyah with the Torah, whatever. My understanding is there will be the podiums are going to be spaced apart further than they were, to keep some distance. And that, like, when somebody comes up to read the Torah in English or the Haftarah in English, the rabbi will go off the bima to the side while they're reading. And then when they exit the bima to go back to their seat, the rabbi will come back up, just to kind of keep things as safe as possible. We'll see.
I'm I'm kind of because every time we do a uh, any event whatsoever, there's always a cap for whatever reason. There's anywhere from 5 to 25 people that day, or that and the time of the event show up. And I'm not real positive how that's going to happen.
Well, I think the people this is going to fall very, very much, I think, on the shoulders of the ushers and maybe the members of the board as well. If you are not on the list as having called to say you were attending, you will not. I suppose you can stand there and wait and see if somebody doesn't show up. but you will not automatically be allowed to come in. I mean, we know how in the past too, we'd have visitors who would just be wandering through Savannah and want to come in, or Jewish people who happen to be visiting Savannah for the weekend who would want to come in for services. Right now, none of that is supposed to be happening. So that's going to be a tough call. If you're standing at one of the doors and you're going to have your list of the people who called and reserved a place, and someone shows up who didn't, it's going to be your job to tell them, we can't seat you. If you want to stand and wait and see if one of these people doesn't show up, then maybe at the very end we can, get you in.
I'm going to be a little interested in how they're going to do that.
Yeah, I know it's going to be interesting. It's not going to be perfect. And I'm sure there will be next week, there'll be a lot of sort of stepping back and rethinking some things and procedures and whatever. But like I said, if we don't start, then we're never going to start. So we got to start somehow. So we'll see how it goes.
Well, actually, you were saying starting. Why don't you start? Because I apologize.
That's okay. Let me get started. So this week, we are in the Torah portion or parasha called Emor. And this is in Leviticus chapter 21, verse 1 to chapter 24, verse 23. And interestingly enough, it's in this Torah. If you look at the story of Judaism as it's portrayed in the Torah, we start with creation, and there was no Judaism at that point. And then we get to the story of Noah and the flood, and there still at that point is no Judaism. Even though we're moving through the Torah, Judaism hasn't technically begun. Judaism begins with Abraham. And so Judaism starts with one person, and then ultimately that one person, Abraham's family. And so it starts in this very small way. And then as we're going through the Torah, Judaism begins to grow and encompass more and more people. So it's growing, it's getting larger. And so if we look at that history of starting with one person and one family and then growing, and getting larger, it's interesting that when we get to this Torah portion, what is happening in the history of the Jews as a people, in the history of Judaism, is that they are taking on certain characteristics, which is true of any group of people. I mean, if you look at, for example, Americans, there are things that unite Americans. We have the 4th of July, which is a uniquely, American holiday because it celebrates our independence. Americans were united in Thanksgiving. Now, other countries have taken on a Thanksgiving holiday, but we had this national holiday of Thanksgiving that was at one time uniquely American. So every group of people has things that sort of bind them, unite them as a group. And that's what this Torah portion kind of gets to this week. So this is kind of what I came up with as I had looked at it, read it, and looked at some of the commentaries of other rabbis and teachers out there. So when any group of people who are looked at as a cohesive unit that are united by something, form a nation, there are certain defining characteristics that will become common to them. Those in the nation are often united by things such as language, by laws, by customs, by the food they eat, the music, the literature that they read, and other things as well. Another defining characteristic of a people in a nation are their holidays and their celebrations. People join together to mark time that is separate from the usual day-to-day routines. Now, in Judaism, we are fortunate to have a weekly holiday in Shabbat because Shabbat is supposed to be our weekly holiday. We have a day where we are commanded not to work, not to labor. We are commanded to take a break, and we are commanded to take some time for rest. We are to gather with our family. We are to gather with our friends. We are to share a festive meal as part of Shabbat. And for many, it's also a day that we take to remember and to honor God with special blessings, special prayers, and by attendance at worship services in the synagogue. It's a day set apart from the others. And this idea of Shabbat, the whole notion of Shabbat, is somewhat unique to Judaism, to put so much emphasis on sets of rules and laws that govern this one day of the week. Now, granted, while Christians are also taught to keep the Lord's day holy. They do not have quite the strict set of regulations that command what they can do, what they cannot do, what can occur or what cannot occur on Shabbat as we do in Judaism. Further, in this Torah portion, we have described and outlined for us other holidays and celebrations that God commands us as a people, commands us as a nation that we are to observe. So it is in this Torah portion that the ground rules for what we will know as Rosh Hashanah, for what we will know as Yom Kippur, even though those terms are not used in this Torah portion, we now know that the ground rules for those two holidays are set and commanded by God in this portion. In addition, we are commanded for Pesach, and we are commanded the celebration of Sukkot. All of those, all four of them, are spelled out in this Torah portion. And while the way we celebrate today in 2021 may have little resemblance to the details that our ancestors in the Torah and how they commemorated and celebrated these important holidays, the fact remains that we are still celebrating in 2021 these same festivals and holidays that were outlined for us in the Torah. Yes, some aspects of the celebration have continued because there are some things that were done then that we still do today and are carried on to the present day. But yes, some things have changed and modified. So as a result, this particular Torah portion is central to our understanding of ourselves as a people and, as God told us, as a holy nation. People come together at different times of the year to unite in commemorating important dates and events. This connects us to one another, just as it still connects us to our ancestors, and it connects us to Jews around the world. In each community, with its own particular minhag or its own particular customs, these celebrations are being carried out. So when we are celebrating Rosh Hashanah, Jews throughout the world are celebrating Rosh Hashanah. Yes, they have their own local custom, their own local minhag, which may differ a bit from ours here in the southeastern part of the United States, but nonetheless, they are still celebrating Rosh Hashanah. So if we consider the development of the Jewish people that we have witnessed thus far in the Torah, we see how each piece, beginning with Abraham and his family, binds us and defines us together as a nation. Just as every American recalls and celebrates independence on July 4th, or every French man and woman recalls freedom on Bastille Day on July 14th, we as Jews recall our own freedom from slavery every time we gather together for the Seder at the holiday of Pesach to retell the story of the Exodus, and we continue to do that. The Torah has broadened and solidified what unites us as each chapter and book of the Torah moves forward. As God commands these celebrations, we are a long, long way from Abraham making his own personal covenant with God. Much history is behind us, but we also know there is still more to be added to our story as we continue to study the remaining books of the Torah. What seems most essential here is the lesson that we as Jews have a long and a proud history. No matter where we may be, we know that other Jews in the far corners of the earth are remembering and celebrating the same holidays that we are. There is a commonality, a unifying thread that keeps us moving forward. Judaism has never been a stagnant philosophy. It has evolved and changed time and again as the years pass. We know that the Judaism of today looks very different from the Judaism in the days of the temple. But the unleavened bread, the etrog, the sukkah, the fasting on Yom Kippur, the blowing of the shofar for Rosh Hashanah have all lasted throughout the years. And it really is amazing and it is awesome to think of this and to remember this and to remember that it all began with one man, Abraham. So I think this Torah portion really does go a long way toward defining who we are as a people. And it is an awesome thing to think that thousands of years ago, God was commanding the celebration of some of the very same things that we still celebrate today. And even though there have been changes through the many, many years, we're still celebrating those holidays as told to us by God in the Torah. I mean, it's really a long, long and amazing history.
As you said once or twice, and the rabbi said at least once every year. I'm assuming this is the portion where you have the 6 major observances that you didn't. I thought you said it. I think you said everything, but you said Shavuos.
We have this one is Sukkot, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Pesach. Others will come further on in the Torah, but those 4 specific to this Torah portion.
Okay, so you Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Pesach, Shavuos.
No, Sukkot.
Boost. I can't remember. And then the Sabbath. Okay.
Right, well, yes, and Shabbat, of course, that we are commanded with the rules and laws that govern Shabbat.
And Sukkot. Okay.
Sukkot, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we still keep these very same holidays. As I said, we've changed a bit through the years. We don't have a temple anymore in Jerusalem, so some of the observances clearly have changed, especially surrounding Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, because they were very central to Temple Judaism. But we're still celebrating them. We're still commemorating, all of the same things that our ancestors did when they were first told by God that this is what you must do. And these are all special days. And like Shabbat, these are days in which you don't work, you don't labor, you take them as time special from the rest of the days of the year to celebrate the various things that are part of our history.
I feel bad because I came in to this cold because I have not read the portion for this week this year.
Yeah.
Don't tell anybody.
I don't know. It's none of my business. It's like, there's it's there, and you don't even have to always read the entire portion, but pick a section of it to read perhaps, or, and even look at some of the commentaries, because often through the commentaries, you'll recall what the portion was about as they're pulling out different aspects of it, that each particular rabbi or cantor or teacher, whatever, wants to focus on. I mean, for example, I have no idea, because I don't consult with the rabbi, like, Rabbi, what section are you going to be reading from this whole Torah portion? You're talking, 3 chapters of Leviticus. I don't consult with them. So the rabbi may be focusing on a whole different piece of it. I don't know, and it's because I see something in it that I focus on. Rabbi Haas sees something in it that he focuses on, which is great, because then you're getting 2 different perspectives sometimes of the same Torah portion.
I do apologize. I know that the rabbi, when he first came, was talking about the different sections, and the Orthodox and conservative do the entire section,
right?
And then the Reform doesn't do it in thirds.
Right.
And every year, it's the first year is the first section. The second year is the second section. The third year is the third section, and it goes in cycles.
Yeah, we're on a triennial cycle of readings.
And but we do it. It's not this. It's not the actual. If you please tell me.
Right.
It's not actually the entire third of the section. It's a sliver or a major portion of that
Right.
portion. Okay.
Well, what each individual congregation and rabbi or whoever's leading the congregation pulls, something from the portion that seems relevant, that they can, find a lesson for the congregation. So reading the section and then commenting on it during a sermon or whatever. And that can, like I said, if we've got these different sections, you can have the same Torah portion, and yet different people see different aspects of it. I mean, which is kind of what makes the Torah so fascinating, is that, you can have 10 people that read the same section of the Torah, and each of the 10 people may have said, well, the one thing that struck me was whatever, and someone else says, well, what really struck me was something completely different. And so you have this wealth of ideas and discussion that can happen, and that's just one Torah portion, not talking about the entire Torah.
Is there a particular aspect of the Torah? I know that you talked about with your discussion about this portion makes way for the commandments to do the six major observances.
Right, our holidays, our festivals, right.
But is there anything else that you think that comes out to you in this section?
Well, I mean, there's a section too in this Torah portion that talks more about some of the guidelines for, the priestly, the high priest, and whatever. Those sections don't jump out at me quite as much, only because they're not as relevant, since we don't have, when we go to synagogue, we don't have a high priestly class that is up there, in the Holy of Holies, sort of conducting the service, and we are just mere observers. We have gone to, in a synagogue, especially in a Reform synagogue, a much more participatory service where we are responding and praying and singing and chanting and whatever. And the rabbi still leads us, but it's not the same elements of the high priest. So much of that, is not a part of Judaism, the way we celebrate, even in an Orthodox synagogue, because we don't have a temple. Mm-hmm. And so for people, it's hard for some people to look at these things and find, well, what does that have to do with me today, since we don't have a temple in Jerusalem? We don't have these rituals that were at one time, very important and very sacred. If there's ever a temple in Jerusalem again, will they be, reinstated? Will they come back? I don't know that. But so I try to look at things, or I personally, when I'm looking at each individual Torah portion, I try to look at things that can still resonate with people today, that will, the rest of it is great history and understanding where we came from and how we began. But I try to always look at something like, what is in this Torah portion that still speaks to 2021 and how we celebrate Judaism and how we live in the world as Jews and as the Jewish people. That's what I look for. That's my take on it. I always try to focus on something that I think the people who are listening or involved can take something away from it and say, okay, that still makes sense to me. That's something I can incorporate in my life. So if I've not been doing a good job of observing Shabbat, for example, maybe I should do a better job of that. Maybe I should take more time to make Shabbat something special and don't just treat it like, oh, hey, it's the weekend, And there are people, I know people personally who have said, I got to a point in my life where I really wasn't giving any relevance to Shabbat. And I realized that I wanted to start doing that, and I wanted to start making it more special. So I started lighting candles every Friday, and having challah and wine, and making a special dinner, and making it something set apart. And we go through phases in our lives where sometimes we are doing a better job and sometimes we're not. Don't beat ourselves up for it, but that's why looking at the holidays, I think in this portion is important, because we need to remember that this is part of what defines us as Jews. This is part of what defines us as a nation, as people, are these celebrations that God has commanded us. And so it is essential that we remember them and observe them. I love the fact that there's a Shabbat every week. I love the fact that there's, something special, that 6 days of, the regular work week or the regular week, and that we have taken the time to set something apart. And I make it a point to make every Shabbat special in some way, some weeks bigger and better than others, but every week, and lighting candles every week, and, saying the blessings over the challah, the blessings over the wine. That to me is not an option. It has to happen. It has to happen. And that's just me. I wasn't always as adamant about it as I am today, but today I'm very adamant about it. It has to happen. It's Shabbat. It's going to happen. It's good. I just won't say no. It's not an option.
A ritual?
And pardon me, what?
A ritual?
It is.
I don't know what to say. Sometimes ritual has a pejorative meaning for some people.
Yeah.
I don't think of it that way, but maybe I should get another word in. You said habitual. Okay, that's probably the better term than the ritual.
No, you're right. Some people don't like it. They said, well, it's just rote. You're just repeating the same thing week after week. And, if you don't take the time to think about what you're really doing and what you're really saying, I suppose that's true. But I try very hard to keep the distractions aside and really to connect with, being thankful for bread representing substance from God, and being thankful for the wine because wine is celebratory and that we have the chance to celebrate, and saying the words of the Kiddush, and not just the short one, the longer one. And, and then making sure that Shabbat dinner, that a Friday night dinner is not just something, sort of caught on the fly, but, with some special preparation, or maybe something that you haven't made in a while and you want to do something different and special. I make sure every single week that there are beautiful flowers on the table, and so that when the candles are lit and the blessings are being said, there's some element of God's beautiful nature present on the table as well. So every week I make sure, we are not having a Shabbat table without some kind of beautiful flower bouquet. It doesn't have to be fancy, but it's beautiful flowers, because to me, it brings me great joy to have those there and to help make it special.
And I feel bad about the portion for today. I should have been prepared for you.
That's okay. It's okay. It's just good to take the time to think about it, and think about what this part of our history is all about, and connecting to Jews of years ago. And as I said, we're still creating the history. Today, we are still creating Jewish history that, God willing, will continue on for thousands of more years. I know there are people out there who would like to see that not happen, but, we're not going to let them win. So.
Inside and out.
Right. Well, I mean, there were 4 synagogues vandalized in the Bronx this week, broken windows and things of that sort. And then there was, interestingly enough, in Minnesota, there was a mosque that was vandalized as well. So, I mean, there are people out there who just have ugly, hateful thoughts, and I can't stop them from having ugly, hateful thoughts, but I also don't have to give in to their ugly, hateful thoughts because, like I said, I'm not letting them win.
The only thing I think I was going to ask about, have you, I don't know if the rabbi is going to make a comment or not today for Friday night services or tomorrow regarding the loss of life in Israel.
Oh, what happened last evening?
I forgot that that in certain circles there is one or two quasi quasi not occurrences, observances
Right.
throughout the Omer,
Right.
and I don't think as a Reform we do a lot for the Omer period.
No.
Much less observe those things.
Right.
Do you have a comment about that or not?
Well, I mean, it's clearly, you look at any Jewish calendar, and the counting of the Omer is there, and culminating when we finally arrive at Shavuot. I think part of the reason, good, bad, right, wrong, I'm not here to judge whether it's good, bad, right, or wrong. I think part of the reason that Reform Judaism sort of has pushed it into the background, and if you want to observe it in your own way, you can, is it's very agricultural, and clearly we are not agriculturally, most of us are not agricultural people, in the way we live our lives now. And so I think that's perhaps a big deal as to why it fell aside, unlike in the Orthodox community where it's still, with the bonfires and the celebrations last night, that unfortunately resulted in the loss of life for 44 people and injury for many, many others, which is horrible. It's horrible. I don't know that there's ever been a real movement in Reform Judaism to bring it back. I have a couple of books on, just a daily sort of meditation on the counting of the Omer, but that's meant to be more of a one-on-one private thing. It's not meant to be, a community thing so much, or a synagogue kind of thing. It's just if you in your own, take a couple minutes with a particular little prayer reading, and have a little meditation as part of your day. That's as far as I have ever taken it. In terms of the Reform movement trying to do something more with it, it seems like it's almost just, well, it's there, but I don't even see much being written about it. But you never know, because things that once upon a time would have been not considered to be a reform, something in Reform, have changed. There has been a return to certain rituals and certain practices in Reform Judaism that at one time were put aside. So everything evolves, everything changes. And I think there are people who like a set of rituals and who like a set of observances because it does create a connection. And so that's why I think we've seen certain things coming back. I mean, I don't know if you know, but in the history of Reform Judaism, there was a time when Reform Judaism did no bar or bat mitzvahs at all. They put them aside and they went to confirmation, which was a little bit sort of borrowed from kind of a Lutheran Catholic sort of tradition. Now we've gone back clearly to bar and bat mitzvah as a celebration, which I think is important. We haven't completely gotten rid of confirmation, so we've kind of kept that in the mix as well. But there's a case of where something was shunted aside for years, And we did a reevaluation, think, maybe we need to bring this marking for young men and women back into the synagogue and into the observance of Judaism. I particularly think it's a good thing. That's me. I'm sure there are many people in the congregation who think differently than I do. It's why I don't go to synagogue without wearing a kippah. It's why I don't go to Saturday morning services without wearing a tallit. I mean, people say, well, that's old fashioned. That's not reform. No, it's Jewish. It's not reform. It's not Orthodox. It's not conservative. It's not Reconstructionist. Tallit and kippah are Jewish, period. Period.
I understand, but I've never done the I can't pronounce it, prayer shawl, but I've always done the kippah.
Right.
I've been in the services. You can see throughout the years when you go back. I sit in the back. How many kippahs there are, and used to. In fact, there were times when a couple years where you had women doing kippahs.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you. I'm sure you know. I don't. There's men have the kippahs, but there's a special. I think of it as a doily for women.
Right.
It's the same thing, but there were women who did the doilies for a couple of years.
Right.
There as well. There are people who, not that many, but there have been people who have done the prayer shawl. I didn't realize that you do, and Caleb does.
Oh yeah, every Saturday. If I come to services on Saturday, I make sure I have my tallit and my kippah with me all the time.
You are probably, you two are the only two that go and do it in the audience per
Well,
se.
there's a few others. I think Marek almost always has tallit and kippah. I think when Joel Greenberg comes, I think he has a kippah and tallit most of the time.
You're right. And as well, Miss Carol does too.
Carol Greenberg does as well. Jonathan Rabb almost always has kippah and tallit as well. So there are some. There's not many, and there's some that will just do the kippah, which is fine, But to me, it's I do it. I don't do it for any other reason than when I put it on, when I'm in the synagogue and I have my tallit on, it's almost like a way of setting me up for the mindset of prayer. It creates a sort of feeling for me, and this is just me, it's my own personal thing. It creates within me a feeling that I'm ready now to give some time to prayer and give some time to God. And so it's sort of like, it's in a way sort of separating me from, again, the rest of everything else going on. Now this is the time I'm devoting to worship. And so the tallit gives me that mindset.
I come and I see you and the Greenbergs, Caleb, and Jonathan, and it just doesn't dawn on me that there's a difference between your attire and everybody else's attire. I think of it as we're all Jews, and we have and we all have the choice of wearing it or not wearing it, exactly. And it just doesn't register for me. and
Right.
and what you and you just reminded me that you do it. So
And like I said, I think it has to be a choice that for every individual. If it doesn't create something for a person, then don't do it just because somebody tells you you're supposed to. That's never a good reason, really. But for me, it creates a different mood for me, so that's why I do it. Um, and I would feel very strange being in a synagogue service without it. A Saturday morning service without it would feel very strange for me. Now, and some, and in some congregations, Reformed congregations, it's more common than in others. The congregation that we belong to in Ohio, comparatively, was much more. You would see far more Talit there than you see down here.
and I've been in synagogues where Talit, no one did Talit, but
Right.
every single man had a keep on, just
Right.
every single person.
Right.
So it just the just everything is what they call that, not centralized, localized,
Sure.
kind of.
Well, that's the Hebrew word minhag. Minhag means whatever the local custom is. So, in certain synagogues, congregations, the local custom is everybody wear a kippah. Others, the minhag is nobody wear a kippah. Others, the minhag is, well, wear one if you want to. Don't wear one if you don't want to. And I tell, when I'm teaching Judaism 101 to potential converts, I said, you travel around the country, okay, and you go into a Reform synagogue, the essential service you will know and you will understand, but realize that every congregation has a minhag that may be a little bit different from Mikveh Israel's. You'll get comfortable, you'll understand the one here, but realize that every synagogue may do something slightly different. There are some synagogues, Reform synagogues, where, for example, not everybody stands up for Kaddish. Only those who are actually remembering someone that particular week stand, the rest of the congregation remains seated. I said, it's not that one way is better than another way, that's their local minhag. And sometimes if you're in a congregation that you're not familiar with for services, you just kind of look around and, follow the lead of what everyone else is doing. And most people, they'll be helpful. If you just need to lean over and ask a question. I mean, people have asked questions, whispered questions to me when I've been in services, and I'm more than happy. They're visitors and they don't quite know, or maybe they're even visitors who aren't Jewish and they might not know. So, most people will be very willing to, get you where you need to be.
When I was visiting for services at AA, sometimes I would be the only one to stand for the Kaddish, and they know me now, but they looked at me kind of funny when I stood. So I actually go in the back and stand, and they're okay with it.
Right.
But for the first year and a half, they were scratching their heads. They didn't say anything, but they
Right.
scratched their heads. And after services, they talked to me, and they said, "Oh, okay, that's what you do. That's okay, no problem."
Right.
And so I remember, and also Talit, there were people who didn't, who the only people that wore Talit were the people who were Jews for Jesus.
Oh.
There was a couple, there were a couple, and so there were times when when they came, they left, and people came in who were Jewish and were that's their custom.
Mm.
my thing was they're Jews for Jesus until I realized that that this is something again that that people are going to be doing again. Jews are going to be doing again in this congregation. But it took me a little bit of a while to looking at people and very suspiciously. So
you know, and I've been
I,
in.
I felt bad when I was doing it, but I had to remind myself this is you can't tell.
No.
So
No, my theory is I just let people do what's comfortable for them, and is meaningful for them, as long as people are being respectful, of the fact that they're in a synagogue and it's a time of prayer and all of that. I'm okay with it. Just be respectful. That's all I ask.
I'm sorry. I just flash back to a couple of times when before when people when someone would be in the middle of services trying to witness to everybody.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, well, it happens. It definitely happens. It happened. I had somebody do that in one of the classes I was teaching one time.
Really?
Oh yeah, yeah. It kind of it created a little bit of a strange vibe for a while, and I very respectfully had to let this person know that this was not acceptable. This was not the place for this, and we are welcome to have people take the classes we offer, but this is not a chance for you to try proselytizing or whatever. And she never came back. So, and that's probably okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing or just a thing.
I think it was probably okay because I think she really thought this was going to be her forum. And I just had to and I wasn't mean and I didn't yell and I didn't scream. I just very calmly said, this is not the time or place for this. You don't come, this was, we were having class at the synagogue. I said, you don't come into our house of worship, our space and begin to proselytize. That's just not acceptable, any more than I would go into your space at your house of worship, your church or whatever, and try to proselytize, because it would be very disrespectful of your religious values. I mean, she did not get angry, she did not get hostile, and like I said, I just never saw her again. So oh well.
Tim, I'm sorry. I'm thinking that we probably need to wrap it up. I'm trying to give you your entire hour.
Oh, close. It's what, like 151, I think, 152. I can't tell. 151.
If you're okay with it, maybe next week. I hope. I feel bad that I am your audience.
Yeah, that's okay. I don't mind. I mean, sometimes I have more, sometimes I don't. This time of year is always a little iffy because some of my regular attendees go away for the summer, and who were coming pretty much all winter. I don't care whether there's one person. I don't care whether there's 10 people. It's all good with me. I'm here. I'm ready. I'm prepared. I've got my thing to do. So So if it's just the two of us, that's fine. Good conversation, good ideas being exchanged back and forth. That's really what it's all about anyway.
And I will try. I swear to you, I will try to be prepared next time I come.
Well, I'm not going to give you a quiz because that's not the way I do things. I mean, not like the days when I was teaching high school, but that's okay. It's
oh God, pop quiz.
no pop quizzes. I'm not that. I don't do that in Torah study. I don't do that when I teach the other classes either. No, don't do that.
Well, then I probably might see you tomorrow.
Right.
If nothing else.
Right. And in the meantime, enjoy the rest of your day. And Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
And yeah, let's, because to be honest with you, my next job is I need to go do a little shopping for Shabbat dinner tonight. There's a few things on the recipe that I forgot to get, so I need to make a quick run to the store.
I won't tell, okay?
Yep. It'll all be good, but I want to get it done because I want to start cooking in a couple hours. So, all right, good to see you, David. Have a great weekend and